Hello and welcome to Women's Biz Podcast. I'm Annie Gibbins, founder and CEO of Women's Biz Global, and I invite you to get comfortable and listen in on candid conversations I have with fascinating women from around the globe. Business leaders, entrepreneurs, humanitarians, athletes, and a whole lot of regular people. Tune in as they let their guard down and open up on aspects of their business and life journey, how they measure success, and what they have learned along the way. These conversations aim to inspire you to embrace opportunities and possibilities beyond the limits of your imagination. Reclaim your power, strength, and vulnerability. Stand in your truth and propel yourself towards the life you dream to live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Women's Biz Podcast. I am super excited to be meeting with you again today, having you listen in. I love your contributions via our chats. I love the fact that you get to listen into amazing conversations I have with women around the world, and I am not going to disappoint today. I have a beautiful guest with me. Her name is Cassie Saquing, and she's a real powerhouse in business transformation. You wait till you listen in on our conversation. She's not just a financial, money, mindset coach, soul-centered lady. She's also a mum of 4. So us mums of many children, oh my gosh, we can do incredible things. She's also an awesome lady, but she's going to share her journey about how she leveraged her background in education to craft a 7-figure daycare business showcasing serious expertise in entrepreneurship, because that is just so wild and so impressive. And she's going to be able to give you, our beautiful listeners, so many tips on, how she approached it, what were the challenges, and how she has just smashed this new area, and how everyone else should be diving into these opportunities as well. So welcome to the program, Cassie.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Annie.
It's great to have you on the show today, and I would love you to just introduce yourself to the listeners. Tell us a bit about this background. What role did you have in education, and then what happened that you suddenly went, you know what, I want to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to pick daycare?
Yeah, that's kind of how it feels. When you say it that way, it's like, you know what? It's so funny. I went all the way through to become a music education teacher, the kind that has like all the kids coming through the room all day long, every day for elementary age. And I love children so much, but I went through and I got my degree, and then I realized I don't want to do this with my life. And so I started doing things like nannying, babysitting, all child related things. Obviously I had a degree in it, so I was pretty well prepared for that. And then I got married young, and I started having children pretty young. And so my husband was in seminary. I couldn't really afford daycare. So I started watching children in my home. That's kind of how it started. I created little programs and fun things. And obviously I could put my education degree to use, and we had so much fun. I look back on those years with like so much happiness and joy. And then, we wound up moving across the country to New Jersey. And I continued that as well, because then we were having, so, you just keep having children. You're like, okay, wow, I'm never leaving the house again. I got to do something. And I also am not the person who loves to just be home for hours on end. I like to do things. So we'd be like outdoors, go to the park, doing activities. And it was really fun. And all the children that I watched during those times are just like very special to me and very personal. So at the time, our church was looking to hire someone to start a daycare for them. That was the original intent. And so I wound up starting it for the church. And then the person who I started it with, who I thought was way more educated than me, wound up leaving and going to a different job. And so I took one of my teachers and I invited her to help me. I'm like, I need help. And so it just turned out to be, we're like, let's start our own daycare. And we made an offer to the church, and we purchased it from the church and created a for-profit business. And so that was, we started in 2005, and then we purchased it in 2009. So since that time, we've been running as a for-profit entity. And we did start scaling shortly thereafter, because you just start realizing, I can't do it all. It's so much. And we start growing a lot. When you start growing, you don't have the capacity to have your hands in every pot anymore. You realize I need to find other people to help. So
What an awesome journey. I love it. I love that. And I used to dream, because I had 5 children, our listeners know, and I used to think, gee, it would be great to own a daycare center and then all my childcare issues would be solved. But of course, it's a bit dreamy because you're actually working and running it all and learning about the business. And there would have been so much learning curve there. I love the way that you partnered up, because that is just such a big gold nugget right there straight away. If it's not your area of expertise, or you need some support even in the venture, it might be financial, it might be because they've actually got a different skill set, whatever that is, to be able to boldly go into there and then realize that difference between growth and scale. I'd love to tap into that as well for our listeners, because when you grow, it's a nice concept of growing, but you're basically just running a bigger thing that requires bigger work. So I love the whole concept. I'm all about scale, because you're then growing while making it more efficient, more effective. How can you do more with less? I'd love you to talk through, well, how did you approach that? How did you know when to grow, when to scale? What were the challenges in there?
That is such a great question. And, at the time, I wish I knew the answer to that. I really was going by feel, right? It's like, this doesn't feel good. We need to figure something out. And I think growth can be constantly happening in your business, but it looks different in a startup phase. And then, as you're growing and growing, and suddenly you just reach this capacity, whether it's in the hours that you work. I know some people may be listening who have like an agency model. It's like, I can't put any more hours into my workload. Like that's when you realize, okay, I need to scale. And that scaling is kind of like, I always say, the first step to scaling is finding your mini me. And that means replacing yourself. And that's really challenging for a lot of people. I kind of have worked with clients over the years, like, what's your magic? Like, what are the top things that you bring to your business that you think are impossible to replace? Because that was a belief. It was really a big belief, limiting belief I had, was nobody can be me.
Yes.
My Cassie brand of magic, is irreplaceable.
I need to be everywhere, right?
Yeah.
I know a lot of our listeners will be having a giggle, because like that, seriously, this is your baby. You're necessary for everything. It's like the whole world will fall down if you don't do everything. So this is we joke about it, but it's actually a huge part of scaling, right?
It's an emotional journey, and it's a grieving process, because I used to know like all 110 kids' names, all the parents' names, what they did for a living, and like would see them every day. And there's like a fulfillment in that. And so there's a step where you have to take a step back. And I think that's a real challenge for a lot of people. And it was definitely a challenge for me. And I started realizing at that time that I really loved the admin side of my job and the business. And my partner, she's great at the classroom and the details and those kind of fun things. And so it was a really good partnership, and we're still partners to this day. And we love working together, and we're close friends. And that's pretty magical too, because that doesn't always happen, but we're both moms. Are like, in order to be like, stay moms and stay married, we need help with each other. And I think women are different that way. We tend to like collaborate. We, work together a little bit more. For those of us, and I know like on your podcast, the women who follow you are like that too, because that's how you are, Annie. And that's a big, big value for me as how I love to support women in business. It's like we don't have it all in one person. That's why we need to be on a team. We need to work together. But I definitely think that, replacing yourself first is like number one, and then trying to really assess. So you're right now, if you're like in your business and you're doing everything, you're the system. Everything goes through you. You're the filter for everything. You're the bottleneck. And if you're feeling that way, like I can't make enough decisions, or you're hitting decision overload, that's when it's time to scale. Find your replacement, start training them, and then start documenting all those processes. You may have it in your head, like I can do this with my eyes closed, but how are you going to teach someone else if you don't write it down? And I think that's the first step of really starting to step back and scale. And then you start to realize, oh, I can be replaced. It's okay. I'm going to take a different role in my business and look at the big picture now, instead of being stuck in the daily operations all the time.
Oh, so well explained for our listeners, because I know so many of us just get to those stages of overwhelm, right? And as we are growing, and it's like, oh, well, like you just can't keep working at that rate, and it can get completely overwhelming. And then I've had other people on the podcast sharing about their burnout stages or cycles of burnout. We certainly want to just do things better. We want to do business better. We went into this business because we're wanting actually more free time, more flexibility, time to juggle that work-life balance and the things of that nature. And so strategies that you found to be most effective are obviously replacing yourself. Did you approach that as, are they paid positions, or did you actually go, I'm going to need some temps at different stages? Are they contract roles? How did you actually approach that in your business?
You know what? I think, in daycare, trust is the biggest currency. I know it's the biggest currency in so many areas, of course, as coaches, consultants, whatever we do. But especially when it's your children, for us, we really wanted to have someone in-house and then hire an employee for that. But I would recommend, I worked as a fractional COO for other people. I still do that. And I think a lot of times that's not a bad idea to hire out and try someone out, because it's much easier to get rid of or end a relationship with a consultant than it is with an employee. And depending on your state, even if it's an at-will state, it's really challenging, and you have to really show proof of why you're letting them go. And it turns into a whole job. And so I do think it's, it's smart to hire temporary, but also if you're looking at a high level position, like, kind of like a C-suite level, like somebody like running your company, then you really want to be able to pay them and assess in your business too. So
I totally align with that. I do that myself. So I'll do, contracting roles if it's a graphic designer, someone helping, with my TV show or podcast or magazine or bits and pieces. But then if you're actually wanting someone to be in that face of the business, to be that extension of you, then I'm a big believer that they have to be there as well. I love that. Did you have a pivotal moment or a mindset shift that helped you go, the difference, that transition to 6 to 7 figures? Like, it's huge, and some people will just blow your mind that you can be in those sorts of stages, but it requires a massive difference for you still to then go, oh my gosh, I'm running a 7-figure business, but I still have joy. I've actually see it quite simple. You've mentioned already those processes, and there's always times of, busyness, but the fact that you can do it, what happened in your head to make you go, you know what, this can be me?
I love that question. And, it makes me laugh when I look back on it, because I really, I grew up in the Midwest on a farm. Like, I literally come from the cornfields of Michigan. And, my parents are blue collar people. They did go to college, but, it's just a very different place that I live now, right outside New York City. And I always thought, well, if I make my first million, it's going to be amazing, right? Like, we all have this $1 million idea, this like, it's going to be amazing. And we got there and I was like, where are the balloons? And like, where's the party? Nobody showed up. And the accountant's like,
hey, everybody, I'm amazing.
yeah, the only person who showed up was the accountant, who's like, you got to pay more taxes. You're in a new tax bracket. We were like, what? So, I think the mindset shift is to realize that there's no arriving, and that money really isn't a real thing. It's just a tool. It's not this, like, I think we get these emotions around money and we're just like obsessive and like, I'll feel this way when I get to XYZ number. And it's just not true. It's like, that's part of like how you show up now. How you're going to show up later. And I think that that's huge. It's a huge mindset shift. And I understand that, it's a big deal getting to $1 million. And I that's great. I'm not like putting that down in any way, shape, or form, but you have to shift your mindset around that. Just looking at it like, okay, now what is our mission? What are our values? What are our real goals? And obviously money's going to get us there. We need to have money. It's a great tool, but you start to take your focus off of the money. And I'm saying that as a money person. Like, I love moving money around all day and like numbers, but honestly, like, the real thing you start to realize is like, wow, the more money we have, the more we can do. And what do we want to do? Right? Make that impact. So
Beautifully said. And yeah, once again, I align with that too. And for our listeners, that's an interesting concept, because you're thinking, well, don't you already know what your mission and what you stand for and things? And yes, you do, but it's very different going, I need this money for my survival. I need it for my family. I need it so I can have the things that were on my bucket list. There will become a stage that you go, you know what, I have those things. And now it actually helps you do that next level. For me, that's been very true in another business I have with my husband, that you can suddenly go, oh, okay, we can have a philanthropic arm, we can do some aid work, we can do, we can use money in a different way. So it's all money, or you can just keep banking it and keep having an amazing, it's your choice, but you get more choices. And I think that's the most amazing thing. As to also, some people want to continue to grow scales, how crazy big can this get? And other people go, you know what, that's enough. And I want to be able to, stay at this stage. So it's not everyone is continually climbing that mountain, if you like, which is interesting. I'd love to talk about your response to emotional regulation, because, in this roller coaster road of entrepreneurship, you will have had times that you have had, techniques. Some people use, tapping, different sort of techniques that they're using to just keep themselves really balanced. Do you use techniques like that, and how they helped you?
Yes, you know what? I appreciate that, because we all need to stay emotionally regulated, or we start really going off the rails with our decisions, because we are the people who can make the decisions for other humans in our businesses. And, when I don't know how it was where you live. I'm sure it was really, really challenging. Where we live, we were shut down for 3 months, with the pandemic, and just, you really lost a sense of control over your life and your lifestyle at that point initially. And I started having like panic attack feelings, and, and then I was going to the heart doctor. They're like, your heart's fine. I'm like, okay, it must be up here. It's all in here. And it is, right? It
might be fine, but it's beating through my chest. I can feel it.
I'm like, this doesn't feel good. No, even with the startup, I didn't feel like this, but you know what? It was such a good eye-opening experience for me. I'm such a different person since that time 3 years ago. I guess three and a half years ago. And so what I found was I was having social anxiety, even going to the store. And this is not me. I mean, I'm used to like greeting parents every day, and my husband was a minister. I'd greet everybody at church. Like, I just was so new to me. And I was like, okay. And so I found, tapping online, like emotional tapping, emotional freedom technique, which is tapping on your meridian points. It's like acupressure. It's just one modality. We all have different ways. And I was really desperate to find a non-medical way to be able to calm my body down, because breathing wasn't doing it. Meditation wasn't doing it, like straight meditation. I was walking almost hours a day, just trying to be like, okay, if I walk enough, my body will calm down. Nope. Yes. It was like, oh no, we're still feeling it. So I was trying different methods, and I know there are so many modalities, but for me, tapping worked. And it's kind of like, cognitive behavior therapy, as you're talking out loud about the real problem. I liked that because I could calm my body down while I was addressing the real issue in my mind. So it's kind of like this thing where, your body's calming down, but you're really leaning into the problem. And it's a very different way to address the emotional anxiety you'd be feeling. So I would tap before I'd go into the store, wherever, if I had to go and meet people. It was definitely a journey for me. And so I started, leading some of my clients in tapping just before, like, we'd have meetings. I definitely have some of that in some of my programs as well, because people have a lot of emotions around money, and they get really stuck, really upset, and it means something. Like, we create so many stories in our heads, right? We were like, this is what this means. If I'm doing this, I'm this, and I'm not that, And a lot of times our body is just stuck in that, kind of freeze mode or fight or flight. And to really calm our nervous systems down, we just kind of walk through some tapping meditations and really focus on one emotion at a time. And that just works for me. It might not work for you or other people. And I think it does work for some people. And I just encourage everyone to find something, to find a grounding technique, or like just a way to reset your emotions and become more regulated on demand. Because, as you know, running a business, it's like all day long, things are flying, and you're like just let me go. Like, find a place to tap. And it only takes, 10 minutes at most, or maybe 20. And it's obviously portable. You're just using your fingers and to tap on your meridian points. And I encourage everyone to do it. You can find it on YouTube and, just do it yourself. It's an awesome tool.
Exactly. So awesome. And thanks for sharing that. And I love that concept too. Well, I don't love it. I relate to it, that it can surprise you when it occurs, this anxiety, this stress, this overwhelm. It's right. It might not have been. You're thinking, but I've done those hard things before. I did the startup. I've even grown my business, whatever. And then suddenly something like COVID or something that you're not expecting, it can just be random that you suddenly go, what is wrong with me? I feel like I'm dying. My heart's beating. I'm not well. This is stress. I've got all this excess energy, all these sorts of things. And it's okay. And it's actually normal. And it's a good thing that we're talking about, because it can happen to people at any different stage of their business, any stage of their life. And it can be just out of the blue that you just weren't expecting it, or it's suddenly at a different stage that it'll kick in for our listeners. So if that's you, just definitely reach out and we can talk more about that. You also mentioned before the importance of processes, and it's such an area that's underrated, right? We've often, those of us who are in business, there's no time to write out your processes. You're busy doing your business. However, it is so important. It's important, as we said before, when you're training up new staff, but it's really important when you're trying to get to that stage that you're consciously juggling or balancing that simplicity and effectiveness, profitability, lifestyle. You're trying to get this business model that supports all, and it's going to relate back to simplifying your processes, as well as valuing yourself, such as paying yourself. Like, all these issues are so important. I'd love to have your thoughts on that.
Wow, that's I love that. I think it's let's face it, writing down what you do every day in your process is kind of boring. So you can try to make it fun, in any way you want. You can do it. But I'm really all about simplicity. That's a huge value for me. We can always overcomplicate. We can always, increase the complicated layers of how we do things. But the fact is, most people, they cannot copy what you do if it's super complicated, right? We may have complicated processes in our head and how we, relate to clients or whatever it is, and that's our own way. But the basics of how you operate your business, especially if you're trying to find your mini me, replace yourself and scale, you've got to write down what you do. And I just recommend most people, just literally audit yourself for a week straight, maybe 2 weeks, depending on how the rhythm of your business is. Write down by day, Monday I did this. And then we start going in, like, breaking that down. Well, how did you do this? Like, just put in 10 steps, or start with the first 5 steps, and then you'll fill it in later, make it super simple. And I think that, that all contributes toward how you show up in your business and how you can pay yourself, because a lot of times as owners, we keep things in our head, right? We're carrying around all this stuff and we don't even realize it. And that's part of the stress, right? The panic attack. But no, if we don't have a place to dump our thoughts, whether that's in a Google Doc, I use Asana, whatever kind of tool you want, you need an external brain dumping place. So I think that that's part of it too. With being able to, document all your processes, look at what you actually do, because that's the starting point. That's when you can start to even delegate. Let's say you're not ready to hire someone, but you're like, okay, what are the things that anyone else could do in my business that, maybe another human on the planet could figure out? Okay, let me start with that, and then go from there. And then that way, then you can start to step back and see. And when it comes to profitability and paying yourself first, I think it's just really important to know your numbers. And, based on what's coming in, what's going out, I'm like super simple with that process as well. And then understanding, like, kind of having these milestone markers in your business. So like, if you make X amount, you're at 6 figures of this much, and you have this many, retainer clients, then you can really start to look at, scaling up and hiring out, that kind of thing. So I think the main thing is always paying yourself first, though. Even if it's a smaller salary, you could do a base salary if you operate as, an S Corp, and then you can always take a dividend at the end of the month, based on real numbers. But in the beginning, I didn't pay myself. I was like, well, the accountant's like, hey, here's the magic, formula for business.
Yeah.
Revenue minus expenses equals what you get to take home. And it's like, wait, there's like nothing left. I don't know what's going on.
I was really loving it, but that's right. I've got no money for me.
Yeah. I think it's important to kind of reverse that equation and also contain your operating expenses as much as possible. And that's where you find the extra money. And there's
exactly
to it, but like, just keep it simple. Keep it simple. So.
Keep it simple.
That makes sense. I hope that makes sense. I could.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Keep it simple. I agree. We overcomplicate everything. I'm getting a new website built at the moment and doing a new CRM with it. And I tell you what, it's been great to actually go, right, what is the sequence on this? Something that's rinse and repeat or can be automated. It really does change your life, and so yeah, and we all approach it in different ways. For some people, it's actually, you can just speak it out. This is what I do. And you speak it and then just get something to document it and then just start working on it, teach it, and then getting someone else to say, if I read this would I understand what to do? There's so many different ways to do it. I love that. Now, you've grown to a level that you then start attracting quite a diverse team. Right. So you then start getting interesting people join your organization, your business, and you then, as the owner of that business, the leader position, the leadership, you then have an opportunity to, apply your learnings about resilience and problem solving and your own self-worth. As you then start managing all of those diverse personalities, how have you found that? Has that been a joy for you to go, wow, I'm in this position now that I really mentor people that I work with? Or is it still surprising to you?
It's a great question. I think we all approach it from a different way, right? I have an education degree. So the bad side of that is like, I thought A plus B equals C. Like if I just explain it to you, you'll know how to do it and follow me. And we'll have buy-in, right? And I think it was overly simplistic. And looking back on it, I came from a position of authoritativeness. Like I was kind of like, I'm your authority. You're getting paid to do this job. I think I really didn't have the leadership skills that I have now, obviously, like almost 20 years later, of course.
Yeah.
But, for me, it took a transformation for me just to show up in a vulnerable, like a safe, vulnerable way, not just like, kind of throwing up on everybody, like all my personal problems, but just being like, hey, we're a team. Let's work together. I'm not great at this, but I'm great at what can we do as a team to talk about these things? And definitely more from a team perspective versus like a positional perspective. And I think that's, I think I operated out of fear from myself first, but then I took that fear as a way to control people. And that's definitely not the way to go. It works, but it's not the most effective. And people won't remember you in the best way. They're like, I was scared of her because she's going to fire me, whatever it is. That doesn't mean we avoid, tough conversations, but I think looking at it now, no matter who the person is, whatever their background, their perspective, their upbringing, if you show up in a very vulnerable way as a leader, still with authority and in a sense of like, I'm still handling the situation, but how can we work together as a team? Yeah. That really, that kind of crosses all boundaries, age boundaries, because people can relate to that. And, I have people who work for me who are, young, like 16 years old now. They're so young and I love it. But we still relate on some level, like approachability and just having that healthy vulnerability as a leader is so important.
Oh, such great advice. I love it. I know as you get older, you start thinking, people are getting younger. Yes, no, you started there as well as it's just that we don't feel that we're getting that much older. The divide. I love the opportunity though. It's always an honor and joy, I think, to mentor other people coming through and to share your learnings and, and also do it in a way that, it may add value to them or it may not at that time, or they might just keep it as a little seed and then suddenly one day they'll go, oh, that's what she was talking about. It's a wonderful place to be. Now, for our female business owners who are looking to increase their cash flow without financial overwhelm, complicated tech, all these sorts of things, do you have anything that you'd be able to offer them today?
Yes, I created this free training because I really feel it's so important. There are like 3 pillars to what I do, and it's all in the free training. And the main thing is, I think what I find when I work with clients, and I've been working with one-on-one clients, like high ticket clients, for a couple of years now. And I really just have wanted to make it more accessible to people who may be still growing, right? Maybe they're in a startup phase. Maybe they've gotten to their first 6 figures and they just really want to get to that 7-figure mark. It really is about managing your cash flow and then making decisions from there. I mean, cash is the one thing we talk about. It's not the main thing, but if you can free up cash flow in your business, you're able to grow quicker. You're able to have more choices, bigger decisions. You can move on, scale quicker, instead of kind of being always stuck on that feast to famine cycle that we see a lot. We've done that, right?
Yeah, we've all done it.
Yeah, you leave your corporate job, and then you go to like paycheck to paycheck or client to client payout, and you're like, why did I leave? Yeah. So
Even worse than that, everyone else says, why did you leave?
you're like, I don't know. So I created this it's not a long video, but it's the idea of showing you the 3 pillars you need to work on to really get that, open up your cash flow and create the cash flow freedom that you deserve. And I made it very simple. So no tech overwhelm, no massive time investment. I want you to be able to actually do it. So that's my training. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for being so generous with our listeners. And how are they going to find that? Where do they go?
Yeah, so you go to bit.ly/cashflow freedom video, and then you can just access it free from there. You just register and it'll be sent to you right away. You have the link right there.
Fantastic. I will put that in our show notes for everybody. You will be able to just click on the link and why wouldn't you just take this free opportunity? Just take some time out, watch it from a pro, someone who's decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to just start a daycare and grow it to 7 figures and just work it all out myself, and is still balanced, lovely, and not stressed out. Has learned so much along the way. It's been such a joy having you on the program today, Cassie. I've really appreciated your honesty in your sharing of your journey, and I think it's been incredibly valuable to our listeners around the world. So thank you for being on Women's Biz Podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Annie. I really appreciate you, and I respect you so much for everything you do.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Women's Biz Podcast. I'm Annie Gibbins, founder and CEO of Women's Biz Global. And if you would like to fast track your future success, pop on over to womensbizglobal.com, where you can find out how our coaching, media and publishing opportunities are helping women just like you to become and be seen as the trusted authorities in their niche. Inquire today and start reining in the abundance you desire.